Hello, my name is Jack Mullen, and I will be creating a model for Brita filters with COMSOL. The inspiration for this model comes from two sources. The first is that most people use Brita filters every day for water use. The second is I'm involved in a club at Pitt called CHE300. The point of the club is an annual competition run by Rapid, which is owned by AKI, and in the past year's competition and this upcoming year's competition, the task was to build a water purification system. So I already have some experience with creating filters for water, and I wanted to apply it to a COMSOL model. There was a few assumptions I had to make for the model. The first was I used a transport of dilute species in a time-dependent study. The transport of the dilute species was the water as it sinks through the filter, which is granular activated carbon. The second was I said no flux on all the outside boundaries so that all the water stayed within the input, the filter, and the tank storage below. I used a 2D system to model this. The middle portion is a granular activated carbon. It's a porous medium so that the water is able to trickle through the filter. Next, I also used an arbitrary y direction for velocity. I used a -3 meters per second to account for the water going down in the y direction due to gravity. Lastly, I had no absorption of the water in the granular activated carbon to simplify the model a bit and also to make sure that the water completely goes through the granular activated carbon just like it would for a normal Brita filter. On COMSOL, there is no material listed for the granular activated carbon, so I had to add a blank material to input physical properties for the granular activated carbon. The two I inputted were for density and porosity. These values were based off literature correlations found online from many different resources. Granular activated carbon can come from many different sources, including charcoal, coconut shell, and coal. So averages were helpful to use because you never know what granular activated carbon source is put in a filter unless it is specifically stated. However, most Brita filters are not specifically stated for their source of activated carbon. The density I used was 500 kilograms per meters cubed, and the porosity I used was 24.43%. Here is the animation on COMSOL of the water going through the Brita filter. The top square represents the water input as you would put water into the top of the Brita filter pitcher from tap. The middle represents the granular activated carbon filter stack, and you can see that the granular activated carbon forces the water to essentially pool on the top, which makes sense because as a filter, it will have a bulk density and water won't be able to pass all the way through immediately. It needs time to trickle down through, and it'll have a lower concentration at the bottom and the middle of the filter stack. And lastly, you can see after it passes through the filter stack, it goes to the bottom of the tank storage due to gravity. Here is the rest of the animation one more time. Attached are images of the initial and final concentrations of the water throughout the filter. At first, I put a concentration of water at just the input and nothing else, and then at the bottom is listed the final concentration. As you can see, after 20 minutes, most of the water is at the bottom of the tank storage, and only a little still resides in the filter stack. The takeaways from this model is that water easily passes through granular activated carbon. Good thing it does, because without that, Brita filters would not work and it would be very difficult to filter water for commercial use. Another is that it takes roughly 5 to 10 minutes for the water to completely filter between the filter stack. After that, most of the water just sits at the bottom of the tank storage. And lastly, Brita filters are easy to use and quick filtration, which makes them very helpful for average day consumers when they want to get their water for drinking or cooking, etc. Whatever water use is necessary for humans. I want to apply this model in my club Chemi Cube. After this year's competition, we are looking to improve our current design of our filter stack. So my idea is we can use this model as a baseline for future changes. In the upcoming semester, the biggest things we need to address are how to improve this and how can we mathematically prove it. So a visualization of what actually occurs in the filter stack will be very helpful for our team in creating a more efficient and better filter for the competition so that we can come in first place in the upcoming competition coming in November. Thank you. This model was an exploration for educational purposes.